Joanne Fedler was nearing 40, living in a new country and pining for her past. She'd left the violence of South Africa only to find herself carrying the weight of her loss and some extra kilos. That wasn't until a photo of herself in a bikini set the author on a mission to lose weight. But she ended up shedding far more than she'd ever imagined. JNTV spoke to the author on the release of her memoir about leaving her homeland, letting go of loss, and finding faith.
It really began with me just looking at this photograph of myself on my son's 5th birthday in a bikini, and I said aloud, that is not me. I had this absolute disconnect between what I saw and what I felt about myself. And what I recognized was that my body had it was almost like my body had run off with a chocolate mousse, and the rest of me had stayed behind going, excuse me, what's going on here? I just couldn't reconcile these two images of myself. So I realized that there was this big distance between my body and something inside of me. And I think the journey of eating when I was hungry and waiting for hunger to come to me and listening to my body allowed me to close that gap so that I now feel like who I am. And that really, I think, is a journey of the spirit more than anything. My older sister, Carolyn, is hard of hearing. She was born hard of hearing, and she couldn't speak till about the age of 3. And I was about 2, just almost 3 years younger than her. And apparently when I was about 9 months old, I started to speak, and I was the only one who could understand what my sister was saying. So I used to translate for her. So I've always really understood what it's like for somebody to have no voice and to need somebody to speak up on their behalf. And I've always kind of felt very strongly about the injustices that people face that are not of their choosing. So I've always sort of stood up and spoken up on behalf of injustice. There were times when I was quite embarrassed about being a white Jewish South African, and I felt that we really ought to have done more there. I wasn't always proud to be Jewish, and as I say in the book, that I often felt that my Jewishness was compromised by my whiteness. I often found that there was this inability to make the connection between the suffering of the Jewish people and the suffering of black people in South Africa. I had this idea that Jewish suffering somehow was considered worse than the suffering of any other people, and I've always resisted that idea. I've always thought that if we are a people that have suffered and we know better, our job is to really work to end the suffering of all people, because actually we are all part of the same human family. I write in the book that when I immigrated, there were certainly at the beginning I felt molecularly unstable. It was like I felt like I was disintegrating. Everything I knew was disintegrating. And really what was happening there was that there was this shattering of the ego. All my attachments to everything I thought I was, all the attachments of my identity, everything I'd left behind, who I was, disintegrated. And it's almost like a phoenix that rises from the ashes. You actually have to let go of everything in order to change, to transform. That's what transformation is. I do feel like the book represents my journey towards faith, because I've been a wuss since I was very small. Fear has been like my constant companion my whole life, and I don't know whether that was because I was born in South Africa or for whatever reason, fear has always could have tugged along at me, and that was part of the reason why we left South Africa, was fear. And I got to Australia, and there was a point at which I just thought, you know what, I've had enough. I've had enough of living in the shadow of fear. What would it be like to open myself to faith, to know that everything is provided for, that life is moving in the way it's supposed to move, and to believe, as God said to Jacob in his dream, Anochi imach, I am with you, that inside of you, I'm always with you. I don't say you won't suffer. I don't say you won't be hungry. But in your suffering and in your hunger, Anochi imach, I will be with you. And I made a decision around about the time that I went to see this dietitian that I was not going to live in fear anymore, and I was going to work actively towards faith, to live with faith that every moment is as it's meant to be, and that God was always with me. And really, that's what I feel. I never ever feel alone. I never feel that hunger anymore, because I have that sense inside me, Anochi imach.